Okay, so AI, it's everywhere in the news, isn't it?
Absolutely everywhere. Hard to miss.
You see these amazing breakthroughs 1 minute, AI designing drugs or materials,
Yeah, really cool stuff.
and then the next headline is like chatbots giving terrible advice or maybe job losses or, well, even wilder things.
Right, the whole range from amazing to slightly terrifying.
Right.
It's definitely the hot topic.
It is. And, well, there's a lot of talk about what AI might do in the future.
Yeah, the sort of sci-fi scenarios get a lot of airtime.
Exactly. Today, we wanted to do something a bit different. We're diving into the work of researcher Sasha Luccioni.
Ah, yes. Her work's really grounded in the present.
Right. We want to look at the concrete ways AI is already impacting society, the planet, right now.
It's crucial context, I think. Understanding today helps us navigate tomorrow, doesn't it?
Totally. So we're focusing on 3 main areas her research flags: the environmental side,
Which is often overlooked.
the whole mess around data, copyright, artists' rights,
A really thorny issue.
and the problem of bias baked into these systems.
Yeah, all incredibly important for getting a real handle on AI today.
So think of this as, well, your guide to the current AI landscape, beyond the hype. Ready to jump in.
Let's do it.
Okay, first up, the environment. This one might actually change how you see AI.
Yeah, because we tend to think of AI as just, software, code, intangible.
Right. Floating around in the cloud somewhere.
But Sasha Luccioni's work really emphasizes the physical reality. These models run on hardware.
Servers in massive data centers, made of metal, plastic.
Exactly. And that infrastructure needs a lot of electricity to run. A lot.
So every time you ask a chatbot a question or use an AI feature,
There's an energy cost, a real-world environmental footprint. It's not free.
it's easy to forget that connection. Let's talk about the Bloom project to make this more concrete.
Okay, yeah. Bloom was a big deal, a huge collaborative effort,
Hundreds of researchers building this massive open source language model.
right? Aiming to be transparent, ethical, kind of an alternative model. And a large language model, just quickly, is that sophisticated AI trained on tons of texts to understand and talk like a human.
So they built Bloom, and Sasha Luccioni led research on its environmental impact. What did they find?
Well, the numbers were pretty stark, just training Bloom. Use as much electricity as about 30 typical homes would use in an entire year.
30 homes for a year. Wow. For one AI model's training.
Yep. And carbon emissions. Around 25 tons of CO2.
25 tons. Can you put that in perspective?
That's roughly the same as driving a standard car around the planet 5 times.
5 times around the Earth, just for one AI research project.
Just for the training phase of one model, it really highlights the scale, doesn't it?
It definitely does. Makes you think twice about asking an AI for a knock-knock joke.
Maybe. But here's the kicker. Bloom was designed to be relatively efficient and transparent.
Okay. So what about others?
Luccioni's research suggests models like, say, GPT-3 emit something like 20 times more carbon.
20 times. That's huge.
It is, and a really crucial point she makes is that most big tech companies, they aren't really measuring this stuff consistently.
Or if they are, they're not telling us.
Pretty much. They don't often disclose the full energy use or carbon cost. So the actual total impact across the industry, probably much, much bigger than we even realize.
It's like this massive hidden cost. And is the trend making it better or worse? I hear about models getting bigger all the time.
That's exactly it. There's this bigger is better arms race happening in AI.
Right.
Luccioni points out that the size of these large models has exploded something like 2,000 times bigger in just 5 years.
2,000 times. That's incredible.
And bigger models generally mean more complexity, more data, and crucially, more energy needed to train and run them.
So more emissions.
Directly. Her research found that switching to a much larger model for the same task, even something simple,
Like the knock-knock joke.
exactly, could emit 14 times more carbon than using a smaller, sufficient model.
14 times more for the same output. That seems inefficient.
It can be, yeah. And it's not just these giant training runs we need to think about.
What else?
AI is getting embedded everywhere, your phone's assistant, search engines.
Smart speakers, maybe even your fridge soon?
Precisely. Each little interaction might seem tiny, energy-wise.
But billions of users making billions of queries.
It adds up incredibly fast. The cumulative environmental cost is just rocketing upwards as AI becomes part of daily life.
Okay, so it sounds like a significant problem. Are people working on ways to, get a handle on it? measure it at least?
Thankfully, yes. And researchers like Luccioni are key here. She was involved in developing a tool called Code Carbon.
Code Carbon, what does it do?
It's essentially a software tool that developers can run alongside their AI training code.
Okay.
And it estimates the energy consumption and the resulting carbon emissions from that process.
So it makes the invisible cost visible.
Exactly. It gives developers and companies the data they need.
Data to do what? Make better choices.
Right. They could maybe choose a less energy-hungry model if it does the job, or decide to run their training processes using data centers powered by renewable energy.
Which could cut the carbon footprint significantly, even if the energy use is high.
Potentially, yes. It's about enabling informed decisions.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so environment is one big piece. Let's shift gears.
All right.
Let's talk about data. Specifically, how these AIs are trained on just vast oceans of data and the copyright problems that creates.
Yeah, this is a huge area of conflict right now, especially for artists, writers, creators.
Because their work might end up in the training data without them knowing or agreeing.
Exactly. And proving it happened is incredibly difficult. If you suspect your art was scraped to train an image generator, how do you show that definitively?
It seems almost impossible. You can't just look inside the AI's brain.
Right. And without that proof, taking legal action for copyright infringement is, well, really tough.
So what's being done? Are there ways to check?
There are efforts underway. An organization called Spawning AI, which was actually founded by artists.
Okay.
They developed a tool called Have I Been Trained?
Catchy name. What does it let you do?
It allows people to search within some of these enormous data sets, like one called Lion 5B, which contains billions of images.
So you can search for your own work.
Yeah.
Or your name.
Yeah, to see if your images or maybe even personal data ended up in there.
Did Sasha Luccioni try it? I think I read something about that.
She did, and she shared the results. It was interesting.
What did she find when she searched for Sasha?
Well, she found some public photos of her, as you might expect,
Sure.
but also tons of images of other women named Sasha, many in bikinis, and some images were kind of weirdly generated, like with extra limbs.
Extra limbs. Wow. Okay, that's unexpected.
It really highlights how vast and, frankly, kind of random and messy these data sets can be. You don't always know what's in there or how it got there.
So maybe a bit strange in her case, but for an artist, finding their actual work in there could be significant.
Absolutely crucial. Take the artist Carla Ortiz. She used Have I Been Trained? She found evidence that her artwork was included in datasets used to train AI models without her permission.
So that tool provided the proof she needed.
It was key evidence for her participation in a class action lawsuit against some AI companies alleging copyright infringement.
So it's moving from just being a curiosity tool to something with real legal teeth.
It seems so, and things are evolving. Spawning AI, the creators of the tool, have actually partnered with Hugging Face.
Where Sasha Luccioni works, right?
Right. They're working together to create ways for creators to opt in, or importantly, opt out of having their work included in these data sets in the future.
Like setting some ground rules.
Kind of. The idea, as Luccioni puts it, is that human creativity shouldn't just be an all-you-can-eat buffet for AI companies. There need to be controls and respect for creators' rights.
That feels like a really necessary step towards some kind of ethical framework.
Okay. Environment, check. Data and copyright, check. What's the third major area? Bias. Bias embedded within AI systems.
Right. This one feels really insidious, potentially. How does bias get into AI?
Well, fundamentally, AI learns from the data it's trained on. If that data reflects existing societal biases, stereotypes, racism, sexism,
The AI learns those biases too.
it encodes those patterns. It learns the associations present in the data, even the harmful ones.
Can you give an example? Dr. Joy Buolamwini's work comes to mind.
Yes, her experience is a classic and really powerful illustration. She's a prominent AI researcher, and she found that some common facial recognition systems literally couldn't detect her face accurately.
Because she's a woman of color.
Exactly, unless she wore a plain white mask. Her research then showed these systems were significantly less accurate for darker-skinned individuals, especially women, compared to lighter-skinned men.
That's quite shocking. It shows the bias built right in.
And the consequences when bias systems like that are deployed in the real world can be devastating.
Especially in high-stakes areas like law enforcement.
Precisely. Sasha Luccioni highlights the danger there. biased facial recognition has led to false accusations, wrongful arrests.
Oh, wow.
She mentions the case of Portia Woodruff, a pregnant woman who was wrongly identified by an AI system and accused of carjacking.
That's horrifying. And part of the problem is that these systems are often black boxes, right? We don't fully know how they reach their conclusions.
That's a huge challenge. Even the creators might not understand every nuance of why the model behaves the way it does. It makes finding and fixing the bias really difficult.
And Luccioni pointed out how this shows up in image generation, too. Like for forensic sketches.
Yeah, that's a really concerning example. If you ask an AI image generator to create a picture of a dangerous criminal or terrorist or gang member,
it might generate images based on harmful stereotypes.
Exactly. It can disproportionately associate those terms with certain racial or ethnic groups based on biases learned from its training data, potentially reinforcing those stereotypes in a very visual way.
That's deeply problematic. So how can we even begin to see or measure this kind of bias?
Well, again, researchers are building tools. Luccioni and colleagues created something called the Stable Bias Explorer.
Stable Bias Explorer. What does that explore?
It's designed to let people investigate bias, specifically in AI image generation models, looking at how they represent different professions.
Okay, so you could type in, say, doctor or engineer.
Right, and see what kinds of images the AI typically generates.
What do they find? Using scientist as an example.
For scientists, the results were overwhelmingly images of men, often stereotypical-looking glasses, lab coats.
Not really reflecting the actual diversity in science today.
Not at all. And they tested this across 150 different professions in several popular image models.
And the pattern held.
Very much so. Significant underrepresentation of women and people of color across the board, often way off even compared to actual U.S. labor statistics.
Like what? Any specific examples?
Yeah, professions like lawyer or CEO were almost exclusively depicted as white men in the AI-generated images.
Wow. So the AI isn't just reflecting reality. It's almost amplifying the stereotypes found in its data.
That seems to be the case. It learns the dominant patterns, including the biased ones, and reproduces them.
And this Stable Bias Explorer tool, is it just for researchers?
No, and that's important. Luccioni actually presented it at a UN event on gender bias. It's designed to be accessible.
So non-coders can use it?
Yeah, you can use it to explore bias with your own terms, things relevant to you, without needing technical skills.
That accessibility feels key, because AI is creeping into everything, isn't it?
It really is. Phones, social media feeds, maybe influencing loan applications or hiring, impacting the justice system, the economy.
So we all kind of need to understand its potential pitfalls, like bias.
We absolutely do. We need to understand how it works, where it might fail, where the limitations are.
So we've talked environment, data, bias.
No.
All pretty complex, challenging issues. Is there a silver bullet? A single solution?
Not likely, no. As Sasha Luccioni points out, these are deeply complex problems intertwined with broader societal issues. There's no one simple fix for climate change or copyright law or systemic bias.
Words are huge.
But a really crucial first step, which comes up again and again in her work, is measurement. Creating the tools to actually see and quantify the impacts.
Like code carbon for emissions, or have I been trained for data use, or the Stable Bias Explorer for bias?
Exactly. You can't really start solving a problem effectively until you understand its scale. These tools provide that baseline understanding.
And once we have that data, that understanding, how does it help? Who does it empower?
Well, it empowers different people in different ways. Companies get data to choose better models, maybe more sustainable ones, or ones trained on ethically sourced data.
Makes sense.
Legislators and policymakers get concrete information to help them craft smarter regulations and governance. They need evidence, right?
They do. Otherwise, it's just guesswork.
And for everyday users, for you listening, this knowledge helps you choose AI tools you can actually trust more.
Tools that maybe align better with your values or are less likely to perpetuate bias or misuse data.
Precisely. It shifts the power dynamic a little bit, moving us from just being passive consumers to more informed participants.
From concern to informed action. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's circle back to where we started with that anecdote about Sasha Luccioni getting that email.
Ah, yes. The "your work will end humanity" email.
Yeah.
Dramatic stuff.
Pretty dramatic. But her point was important, wasn't it?
Absolutely. That focusing only on those huge, distant, existential risks.
Can make us miss the problems right under our noses.
Exactly. It can distract from the very real, very tangible impacts AI is having right now.